A pleasure to me all at last, and welcome back once again to video games that are totally awesome. For this instance, it's Wednesday, and for the rest of this whole week worth of content, I will be talking specifically about the Pac-Man World Trilogy. You might remember when I had talked about Pac-Man World Re-Pac, which itself was a remake of the original, coming out all the way from 1999 and into 2022, where the remake came out. A good 23 years in between both titles. But we all know that the original still holds strong for a number of different reasons. Being that some people might not appreciate remakes, probably more so than any time back then, and it can be for a number of reasons. Remakes are just something that people have high expectations for, or just can't quite see through most of the usual BS that goes on, like controversial topics and whatnot. A lot of people just don't want to see through that stuff and instead just see what they want to believe. But as for me, I've always dodged all those bullets. Never did take one. In any case though, it might as well be appropriate for me to eventually start talking about the original trilogy, knowing that, well, there's been tons of Pac-Man games that have come out since the original's release. Pac-Man World, of course, was a trilogy coming out between 1999 and 2005, and with many other games coming out since then, with some of the more recent ones being Pac-Man Museum, Pac-Man Championship, and then of course there was a 4-player Pac-Man arcade game. It is appropriate to at least treat the original like unfinished business. So, the original Pac-Man World plus the sequels will be what I'll be talking about for the rest of this week. So, let's get started here. Of course, the game was released in 1999, but Pac-Man World, the original of course, centers on Pac-Man's birthday, mainly for the upcoming 20th anniversary. The character first became popular in 1980 in arcades, and it is quite an astonishing feature that he had gone from being a popular arcade game to a 3D world exploration game in the span of only 20 years. With another 20 years, it's safe to assume that they haven't exactly gone too far beyond the norm, but they at least still managed to keep Pac-Man alive in different ways. Anyways though, Pac-Man is out with his family, and there's a bunch of ghosts all around in the Pac world, and unfortunately, his family members get captured. You have his wife, his child, his dog, a grandparent, and so, with all these characters that Pac-Man's got to rescue, it's the unique adventure, exploring through different worlds to find each family member. For every person you encounter, there's a certain boss that you have to face. And as I've discussed in the remake, back in HJN Super Graphics, Pac-Man World Re-Pac is little more than just a simplicity copy of it. A simplified copy is what it is. But in terms of everything else, it's pretty much all fine here. Some people might look at the original and think that the remake could do a whole lot more, but really, it's more than pretty much just a 6-hour long trip from beginning to finish, rescuing every Pac family member and defeating the final ghosts in the mansion. While the original basically gives us, well, Tac-Man. And Tac-Man is certainly quite a boss to fight against in the final act of the original. And well, while Pac-Man going up against Tac-Man is certainly a great thing to see regardless of which version of the game we're talking about, let me just say that the sequels are probably going to be better worth talking about here. Well, I probably don't have much more to say about the original, but it's still a unique adventure. In the same way that most other games have been either remade or remastered, having Pac-Man World be remade in 2022 by Bandai Namco, quite a different step up from Namco Home Tech, it's still worth talking about today. Compared to the remake, in which that it definitely had not hit all the marks that most people would have anticipated. But I still did enjoy the fact that there was a new Pac-Man game regardless of most people's beliefs and expectations of things. And so with that in mind, for the original, I suppose that bumping up its score would be necessary to accommodate loads of people who might not have such faith for the remake. And so we'll just go ahead and give it an 8.4 out of 10.1. So with that in mind, this concludes my piece of Pac-Man World, the original. But throughout Thursday and Friday, come those days, I will be talking about the sequels. I'll have a lot more to say about Pac-Man World 2, and probably about as much as with Pac-Man World 3. So stick around for those pieces. And if you want to see more, go down to my channel. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, follow me wherever you can find me, and stay on the Hollywood side for more.